Hello friends, it's Christy Marcotte. Today I'm sharing some cards I made using Paper Rose's Winter Gathering 6x6 paper collection. This collection includes 18 double-sided pattern papers with 12 different designs. So I'll flip through these really quickly. There's several sheets of cut-aparts. This sheet has some of the sentiments, or some fun presents. There's a lovely pattern with some birds and some sprigs. Here's another cut-apart sheet, so lots of presents. There's some nutcrackers and Santa. There's ballerina. Here's a lovely pattern that has a wood grain background and some sprigs, so you could cut that in half. Some more little leafy bouquets. Here's a little distressed background. This one's fun with the circle and those little sprigs around the edge. Here's another sheet of cut-aparts, and I just fussy cut those out with a pair of scissors. And then the sheet on the right, you could just use your trimmer and cut those out. And then one final design with some more of the leaves and sprigs. This collection is part of Paper Rose's Christmas in July release, and they also have several other coordinating collections, and I'll be using two of those. So I have Winter Basics and also Winter Dots and Stripes. And I will have links provided in the description box if you are interested in any of the products I use in this video. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I have this lovely pattern paper for the background with all those branches and sprigs. I cut a 2.5 inch piece from that wood grain pattern paper with the little bouquet on either side. So I'll be using the other side for another card. I'm layering all of these pieces on some dark green cardstock, and my cardstock layers are an additional 1/4 of an inch. I wanted a wider matting since both of these pattern papers are fairly busy. I wanted there to be some separation between them. I'm adding one of the cut-aparts included in the paper collection, layering it on some of the same dark green cardstock. Now before I adhere that piece, I am adding some scrap cardstock pieces to the right-hand side where it goes off of the other layers, just to keep everything nice and level. I'll put some liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it to the lower right-hand corner of my card. For this sentiment, I'm using one of the cut-aparts that's included. This is Christmas Cheer. I am cutting the left-hand side at an angle just for some extra interest. Then I'll also add a tiny scrap piece of cardstock to the right-hand side before adhering it to the card. I decided to keep some of my cards nice and flat so I won't have to pay additional postage when I mail them this Christmas. So for embellishments, I'm using just these small circle die cuts. And I cut these out using Paper Rose's Cog Track border die set. Perfect size circle for embellishments, and you can just run it through your machine once and get 6 small circles. I'll adhere those to the right side of my card using some liquid adhesive. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. For the other card, I used the opposite side of the pattern paper with that wood background and the sprigs along the side. Now moving on to card design number 2. For the background of the card, I'm using the green and white polka dots, and this is from the Winter Dots and Stripes collection. For this larger rectangle, I have all those fun presents, and I cut out this panel using the pierced rectangle die set. With that pierced detail along the edge, I decided to use some ATG tape and also some liquid adhesive just to make sure it lays down flat. I'll layer this panel on some green cardstock, and then put my card front onto a card base. And for this card, I will have 1/8 of an inch of that white card base showing. I'll be using one of the larger cut-aparts. Has these 3 cute little dogs sitting next to the pile of presents. So I'm gonna layer that on the same green cardstock, and I'll be adhering it to the right side of the card, having it flush to the edge. I'm using a scrap piece of the pattern paper to put on the very right-hand side before adhering it in place. For the sentiment on the card, I'm using another cut-apart. This is 'Tis the Season. I'll cut the left side at an angle just for some extra interest. And I'll also add those scrap pieces of cardstock on the left side, and I'll adhere it in the upper left-hand corner of that image cut-apart. So overall, a fairly simple card design, But I did decide to add a half circle using one of the Winter Basics pattern paper. I just cut the circle, snipped it in half because I'll use the other half on my second card. So there's my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. This is another card I kept nice and flat, but you could easily add some bling or ribbon for embellishments. For card design number 3, I'm using a card sketch for inspiration. This is I Heart Sketches number 92. For this card, I'm using all 3 of the designs I showed earlier. So Winter Gathering, Winter Dots and Stripes, and also Winter Basics. I love how you can mix and match all 3 of these collections. So I have some tone-on-tone paper for the background. I have a tan polka dot paper for the larger rectangle. And I'm also using the pattern paper with the little bird, it's so sweet, and the little sprigs and branches. Layering everything on some dark green cardstock. I used some of the Winter Basics in that red tone-on-tone design for that angled element on the top of the bird pattern paper. For the very background paper, you're only going to see about 1/4 of an inch, but it still adds a really nice detail. I'll put my card front onto a card base, leaving that 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. For the sentiment on the card, I decided to use one of Paper Rose's word dies. This is Peace. So it has the word and also that outline layer. I cut the word out of some red cardstock and I'm layering it on some white shimmer cardstock, just for a little extra detail. And then I'll pop this up using some thin foam squares. So this card will have a little extra dimension. I'll adhere the word Peace on the lower portion of that pattern paper. Wanted to make sure not to cover up the bird. For the little banner that goes in the upper right hand corner, I'm using the back side of that red tone-on-tone paper from the Winter Basics collection. It has the gingham design. And I don't know if you noticed, but I put adhesive on the wrong side, so I did have to go and cut another piece. Just adhere that using some liquid adhesive. Then I wanted to add just a little more dimension to this card, so I'm using a couple of the cut-aparts. I put some foam tape squares on the upper portion of the branches, then I'm putting liquid adhesive on the lower portion and tucking them underneath the left side of the sentiment. They really blend into the background, but it'll add just that little extra interest with the dimension. To finish off the card, I'll add a few of the clear crystals from Paper Rose's Shaker Mix. I love how there's several different sizes included in this mix. I'll add 2 in the upper right hand corner and 1 underneath the little berry sprig. And I'm using an embellishment wand to pick them up since they don't have adhesive on the back. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this sketch. This is one of my favorite cards. I love that little bird just sitting in the middle. Now moving on to card design number 4. For the background of the card, I have this fun pattern paper. It's a light tan color and it has a distressed look in the background. I also have a strip of the green and white gingham. This is from the Winter Basics collection, and I cut it out using a pierced hillside die. Just adhered it to the lower portion of the card. I'll layer this panel on some gold pearlescent cardstock. And yes, I know I did not cut the center out of that gold pearlescent cardstock. Wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be that noticeable cutout from the front of the card. I'm layering this panel on some red cardstock, then I'll put my card front onto a card base. And I won't have any of that white card base showing. I'll be creating a little scene on the card. I'm using the pine trees die set, so there's 3 different sizes of the trees, and I love the detail from the stitching. Now I cut them out twice, one using the Winter Basics pattern paper and also from some solid green cardstock. I wanted to add a little more thickness to the trees, so I'm just gluing those 2 pieces together and just having the pattern paper on the outside. Then I'll lay out the trees on my card. I'll have the largest tree on the left and the 2 smaller trees on the right, with the smallest overlapping that medium-sized tree. So the two larger trees I'll glue down directly using some liquid adhesive, and the smallest tree I'll pop it up using some thin foam squares. For the sentiment on the card, I'm using Paper Rose's Merry Christmas Fine Script Layered Die Set. So it cuts out the two words. It does include the die for the outline, but I decided not to use it for this card. The red cardstock already has enough contrast against that light tan background. So I'm gluing them down using some liquid adhesive. I'll put the word Christmas first and then the word Merry above it. Shift it off to the left. And I also have the teeny tiny dot for the eye. And I'm using an embellishment wand to pick it up since it's really small. I'll also bring in a few of the gift cut aparts. So I've already fussy cut out all of the little images. I have the green present. I'm going to tuck it behind that large tree. The red present, I'll pop it up using some thin foam squares. I'm putting the squares just on the bottom portion and then adding a little bit of liquid adhesive to the top. And for the final set of presents, I'll have it sitting in front of the small tree. And I'll also pop it up using some of the thin foam squares. And put just that drop of liquid adhesive on the left side where it's touching the tree. For a finishing touch, I'll add a few of the clear crystals. I'll put two of the crystals in the upper right-hand corner and one to the left underneath the word Christmas. And there is my finished card. Again, I did make two using this design. I really like how this card turned out. The pine tree die set is so fun. That detail on the trees is amazing. Now here's a quick recap of the 8 cards I made using Paper Rose's Winter Gathering 6x6 paper pad. This collection is so pretty, and I love how you can combine the winter dots and stripes and also the winter basics collection with the winter gathering. It's a great way to stretch that paper collection. I will have links provided in the description box if you are interested in any of the products I used in this video. Paper Rose is located in Australia and they do ship internationally, but you can also purchase their products here in the US. I will have links for both locations in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.